Hi, Doc. How are you?
I'm great and happy to be with you.
It's so great to see you
It's
again.
so good to see you.
I mean, we have so much health to talk today. We'll get to this in a little bit. How how your journey as a doctor started? Like, what were the things that you were interested the most when you were starting to be a doctor?
So when I started, I was interested in just helping people feel better. I didn't really know where I wanted to go. But when I was in second year medical school, one day my mom was sick, and we called in our insurance, and they sent us one of the survivors of the Andes. You know, the Uruguayans, the
Yeah.
rugby team that fell and they had to eat the dead friends.
Yeah.
And there were two that walked the mountains and got to civilization to bring the rescue.
Right.
One of them is a cardiologist. So he steps in, and this is a celebrity in Uruguay. So I was like very excited to see him, even though my mom was sick. So he saw my mom, and then he talked to me for a minute. He said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm a medical student." He said, "Come with me," and he took me under his wing. So for the rest of my studies in medical school, I was guided by him, and he was a cardiologist. So then I wanted to be a cardiologist. That's how I started.
That's crazy that you got to met that guy because I watched the movie. That's a crazy movie. I
It
mean, they
is.
survived a lot of days in the snow, no plane, no telephone, and the two guys that walk across the mountains to get to like the farm where they called the rescue to send them to the other ones. I mean, that takes another toughness, I would say, and willpower to like go over that, figure it out, and come back, and then you get to met the guy by bringing your mom to a doctor, and that's the doctor
Well,
that.
actually, he was on call, so he came to our house. So I met him in my house,
Oh wow.
and then I don't know, we clicked, and then he took me, and I started following him. So every time that I wasn't in class, I was just following him around and watching what he did. And the guy is incredible, and energy, and very very smart, incredible cardiologist. So I started learning from him. So once I graduated from medical school, I just wanted to be like him. So I came to the United States to do my specialty and subspecialty in internal medicine and then cardiology.
So you start as a cardiologist.
I,
That's the first wing that you took when you started in medicine.
yes.
For how long you only work in the cardiology world?
So I did after medical school. I went to New York to NYU Downtown Hospital, and I did 3 years training for internal medicine. And then I went to Lenox Hill Hospital for another 3 years of training as a cardiology fellow. It's called a fellowship. So, but once I graduated, what happened was the moment I moved to New York, my life changed completely. In Uruguay, when I was born, there were no supermarkets. Everything was simple. Food was real. There were no chemicals. So, and foods were prepared from scratch in my home by my mom, and we had a lady that helped us cook, right? So, health was by default. I mean,
Already in South America,
in
in
South America,
general,
in
like
general.
it's just the fruit is not from a huge company. It's from the market, and that market literally buy it from the farmers. So like, food in South America, it's pretty much clean. It's just food.
Well, it's not anymore because then we started copying, the Americans,
Right.
right? So now there's big supermarkets and there's food-like products everywhere. But I mean, I'm a little older than you.
Right.
So when I was little and growing up until I was 20 something, which is when I graduated from medical school, it was pretty basic and healthy by default. But when I moved to New York, it changed drastically. I was eating from the hospital cafeteria, from vending machines. I was on call 24 hours, sometimes 72 hours in a row. And the pressure of being a cardiologist in the emergency room in the intensive care unit. So I started getting sick. I started first with allergies. At the beginning, the first couple of years were only seasonal allergies. Then it turned into all year round. Then I started having digestive problems, bloating and pain and constipation, diarrhea. And then I started getting depressed, like really depressed, bad. So I went to three of the top doctors in the hospital where I was, a psychiatrist, an allergist, and a gastroenterologist, and I got 3 diagnoses: depression, severe allergies, and irritable bowel syndrome.
And that came from a shitty diet.
And I didn't know at that time, right?
Right.
But it came from stress, bad diet, eating food-like products instead of real foods. I used to go to the supermarket. I came from South America where there were no supermarkets like the ones we see here.
Right.
And I would look at these boxes, and I was like, wow, these guys are amazing. They put this thing in the microwave oven, and in 2 minutes you have something that looks like, and maybe even smells like, what my mom took half a day to cook, right?
True.
So I started eating those things, and then, vending machines and hospital cafeterias, and I started, gaining weight and getting sick.
And the best doctors in the world, they should almost be treated as athletes, because I will say this: the better shape you are, the better you eat, the better the second brain works, makes your brain work good. If you have an open heart and you are overweight, your precision is probably not gonna be. Oh, that wasn't mine. The precision is probably not gonna be as good as when you're fully focused, almost like a training camp for a fighter. That you're eating healthy, training hard, and you get to the fight and you perform. A doctor like that is opening another human being, should be in a similar shape to probably perform better at the time to get the job done for a sick person.
There's no question that the better shape you're in, physically, mentally, the better you're going to perform in anything you do, right? Yet, I've seen one of the best cardiac surgeons in the world operate, and he was,
eating McDonald's in the time off.
He was a little hippopotamus.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't want that guy to fucking cut my heart open.
Well, actually you do, because he's really
good.
Yes, the best in the world. So listen, you gotta tread carefully, no?
Right.
But I'm sure that if he got in shape, and that he would perform even better than what he did,
right,
even though he was already the best.
So what was your eye opening to the transition to where you are today, from being a cardiologist to learning the natural medicine and helping the body to become better?
So what happened is, after I finished those consultations with these specialists, I ended up with 3 diagnoses: irritable bowel syndrome, severe allergy, severe depression, and I was given 7 prescription medications. So when I got home, because I took 2 days off to go and do all the consultations and all the tests, and when I get home, I put the 7 prescription medications on my table, and I look at them, and I know already, because I'm already a doctor, I am a month away from graduating as a cardiologist. And I know already that these chemicals, these medications, are not going to heal anything. They're not going to correct whatever was causing
the problem,
the dysfunction. What they're going to do is force a certain chemistry that will cut off the symptoms, will eliminate, or improve the symptoms. But at the same time, there's side effects, adverse effects. And I knew all that. So when I looked at all these medications, I said, nah, this is not only what I am not going to do, but this is also what I don't want to do for my patients. So it was a big crisis for me. Everything came crashing down, all these years of studying. So what I did is, it was a gradual thing. It wasn't just one aha moment. I started looking for help. The problem that was the worst problem was my depression. So I was really looking for help for that. And that took me to learn about meditation. And, when I say I was depressed and I was having mental problems, one of the things that I noticed was that my mind was always thinking. There were always thoughts about this, about that, sometimes 2 thoughts at the same time. And I realized that most of the thoughts were negative and repetitive. And then I said, well, why am I thinking those? Because if I had a choice, I wouldn't be thinking them.
Right. You want to be happy. You want to have a good traffic of good things going on.
Good thoughts or no thoughts, right? But they were always going on. And I realized that I wasn't choosing my thoughts. So then I said, wow, if I'm not choosing the thoughts that appear in my head, who is? They're, where are they coming from? Why are they there? So I started studying, and psychiatry had no answers for me. And then I was in the bookstore one day, and this book fell out of the shelf, and it was about meditation. And the part that I read that really got me interested was like those repetitive negative thoughts always in your head. Through the practice of meditation, you can slow down and even stop. So I'm like, wow, this is what I want.
Let me give it a try to this.
Yes. So that took me to look for a meditation teacher. I couldn't find one that resonated with me until somebody took me upstate New York to a monastery of sorts, of an Indian teacher, and I had a very powerful experience that made me decide that as soon as I graduated, which was a month later, I went to this monastery, to her monastery in India, as an exchange to learn meditation. I became the doctor of it's called an ashram.
The community?
Of the monastery, right? So I became the doctor there, and it was a huge monastery. There were like 2,000 people at any given time from all over the world. So whoever had a gift or a skill, they put them to work on that. So the guy, for example, there was an engineer who became my friend, who was taking care of all the water pipes and things that came in from the reservoir, and he engineered when it broke, he fixed it. And there was an electrician that was taking care of the electricity of the, and me, I was put in the clinic.
Right.
And because I was a cardiologist, which everybody thinks is like so important, I was made the director of the clinic in the ashram. But there were Chinese medicine doctors, Ayurvedic medicine doctors, chiropractors, hands-on healers, naturopaths, homeopaths. There were so many people that were part of this team, right? And patients used to come and sit, and everybody would ask questions, and then everybody would kind of examine, and then everybody would give their opinion. And I learned so much, because sometimes I thought, wow, this person needs anti-allergics. And the Ayurvedic medicine doctor said, no. If we take off these foods and these foods, you'll see how everything calms down. And it worked. So I started opening my mind in that sense, right?
I mean, that's probably the best medicine, when it's the natural gets attached with a little bit of science, but everything goes hand in hand. Because every time I'm watching fights, that's the only TV I watch, like real TV. And in between every fight, the commercial. Oh, if you have something going on with your...
I was watching this. Hot flashes, take this.
Stomach, you got a pimple on your face, take this. And at the end of every single one comes side effects. Allergic reaction.
Your liver may fail, may cause death.
Kidney is gonna this. You're gonna... And they say verbally, thoughts of wanting to kill yourself. And I go, if I have any problem, and this pill that I'm taking is gonna make me want to kill myself, might as well just rather die with whatever I have. Why got two things killing me when I can only have one? So that's the part that I see in this modern culture. Everything is a pill. Oh, my head hurts, take a pill. This hurt, take a pill. I'm feeling this way, take a pill. And those pills doesn't really cure, like you say. They just push away, but they don't get rid of the problem. So there's nothing going to the root. And when you were in India, that changed probably your medical perspective of the regular practice, and you probably went more into the natural, right?
Well, it definitely opened up my mind, like exploded my mind, because one day a woman came with severe allergic reactions, and I wanted to give her either prednisone or at least an antihistamine, an anti-allergic. And the Ayurvedic doctor said, wait a minute. She gave him some herbs and told her to stop eating all spicy food, no more mango, and gave her a list of things. And within 2 days, she was completely normal. So I was kind of blown away. And I have hundreds of examples like this. But there were also times when, like for example, there was an monk that was there for many, many years who came into the clinic, and we were all looking at him, and he was having kind of shortness of breath, and his left hand was hurting, and immediately I started thinking about a heart attack. But everybody was asking questions, and the Ayurvedic doctor said, well, we have to change the diet, well, we have to do this, and I said, nah, we need to put this guy in an ambulance right now and take him to Bombay, to the hospital. And we did, and I went with him. And he had a cardiac catheterization, an angiogram, and there was a heart attack going on. There was a blood clot. So he got a stent put in, which basically saved his heart, right? I don't know if he would have died from that heart attack, but he could have. But definitely, if the stent wasn't put in to open up the artery again, the muscle would have died. That's what a heart attack is, right? And then the muscle gets weaker, so life becomes difficult. You get shortness of breath and heart failure, right? So that made me really realize that modern Western medicine is great and the best at acute problems. A heart attack, a stroke, you break your leg, your bone. You want to go to the best hospital and get your arteries open, or get the blood clot dissolved, or get your bones fixed up with screws and stuff. Yeah, that Western medicine, modern medicine is great for that. The problem is that the chronic diseases don't respond to the ways in which Western medicine approaches things. So they do the same approach, medicine and surgeries, for chronic diseases as they do for acute problems. For acute problems, it really works. For chronic diseases, it doesn't. And the thing is, and I don't know this scientifically, right? But if I had to guess, only 10, maybe 20% of the problems that human beings suffer at any given point are acute problems. 80, 90% are chronic problems. So we're trying, it's like putting a round thing on a square, we're trying to use the solutions for acute problems into chronic problems. It doesn't work. It makes things worse. Sometimes it helps with some things. When you have pain and you take a painkiller, it's God-given,
Right.
And this is modern medicine, right? But in general, the chronic diseases that people are suffering from, so many people around the world,
They're not solved with a pill.
You don't solve them. You cannot push biology in that way.
So from those times, moving forward, how you start approaching more the natural medicine and trying to get to the cure of the chronic problems?
So I had chronic problems. I had allergies, depression, irritable bowel syndrome. These are all chronic problems. When I went to India, we had the Ayurvedic doctor, the Chinese medicine. So when there were no patients, we talked amongst each other, and they started giving me some advice. Eat this, don't eat this, do this, meditate, come, let me crack you, the chiropractor. I tried everything, right? And I started getting a little better. But then I left and I came back to the United States and I started working in the hospitals again. And whatever better I got in the monastery, when I came back, the same.
Gone.
The rat race, 7 minutes per patient, and eating from the hospital cafeteria, and so I got, not only the symptoms came back, they came back with a vengeance. So then I didn't know what to do. I considered starting taking the medications until one day a guy came, a friend of mine from Los Angeles. I was living in Palm Springs, working in the hospitals there, and a guy came to visit me who I hadn't seen for 10 days. And when he knocked the door and I opened, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The skin was glowing and his eyes were white, and he seemed calm, and he had lost a lot of weight. And I said, whoa, what happened? Did you get plastic surgery? And the guy said, no, I went to a detox center. I said, I didn't know you were into drugs. He said, no, not that kind of detox. Not that kind of detox. And I said, well, what kind of detox is there other than that? He said, well, listen, I don't know how to explain. Come. And he took me to the place. And this was a place where they had a detox program based on juicing and colonics and probiotics. And the owner was from Argentina. So we clicked immediately. And so we started talking. And I was looking around and seeing all the guests were glowing. The longer they had been there, the lighter they were glowing. So she explained to me, not in medical terms, what was going on. I was very impressed. So I decided to try the program. I couldn't be there and stay there, but I used to go in the morning, take the juices, and then go in the afternoon, get the colonic, and take all the supplements, And in 10 days, all my symptoms, everything completely gone. Not only that, I lost the extra weight I had, and I looked and felt 10 years younger. And people used to tell me, what did you do? Just like I did to my friend. So I said, well, I did this, but I didn't really understand it. Because this is not taught in medical school.
Right.
And it wasn't until I found functional medicine, the Institute for Functional Medicine. Are you familiar with functional medicine?
I have a guess of what it could be, but explain me, please.
So there's a man called Jeffrey Bland, who's a scientist, who geniusly developed this other way of approaching modern medicine. So it is as if you grab a modern medicine doctor and teach him how to think like a Chinese medicine doctor or an Ayurvedic medicine doctor. And I'll give you a different explanation. Western modern medicine divides and conquers. So if you have a brain problem, you go to a brain specialist, neurologist. If you have a kidney problem, you go to a nephrologist. If you have a heart problem, you go to a cardiologist, and so on and so forth. The body is divided in organs, and there's a specialist for every organ. Functional medicine doesn't see it that way. Functional medicine divides things in systems. And one system can have many organs.
What works together here with that?
And one organ can participate in different systems. So for example, there is the communication system, which is nerves and hormones. This is the way that body communicates between different parts. The nervous system is very fast. Hormonal system is a little slower, right? But this is how it communicates. There is the transport system, the circulatory system, veins, arteries, lymphatics, that takes things, nutrients, oxygen all over the body, right? Then there is the structure and movement system, which is all the cell membranes, the bones, the skin, everything that gives you form and structure, right? To be able to stand and walk. And then there is the detoxification system, because the body, by its own metabolism, produces waste products. The waste products of the metabolism are toxic things like ammonia, lactic acid, homocysteine. There's a lot of things that the body ends up, when you burn sugar, for example, in the Krebs cycle inside the mitochondria to produce energy. There's a waste, which is CO2, that goes into the blood, gets dissolved as carbonic acid, and then when it goes through the lungs, the difference in pressures makes it go into the lungs, and you breathe it out. So that's one way of detoxifying. You pee is another way of eliminating toxins. So the detoxification system is one of the systems recognized by functional medicine. And then there is the immune defense and repair system. So there's different systems, but they all share organs, and they all meet
together
in the gut. So the nervous system, the digestive and absorption system, the hormonal system, the immune system, they all meet in the gut. And so that is why today everybody's talking about the gut and gut health, and and
it's called the second brain for a reason.
Well, this is the reason. Are we catching it? Yeah. So look, this model, anatomical model, this is the gut wall, right? And here is these foldings that the gut wall does to increase the surface of contact of food that's coming here to be digested and then absorbed through these cells. For example, proteins are broken into amino acids. Fats are broken into esters and fatty acids. Big carbohydrates complex carbohydrates are broken into simple carbohydrates, simple sugars.
Right.
Once they're little, amino acids, simple sugars, the cells on the wall, which is, as you see, is a one layer of cells, right? They take in the nutrients. They take in the nutrients into the cell, and they dump the nutrients into the blood. This is the circulatory system. Blue is the veins, the red is the arteries. So this is what's called digestion and absorption, right? So that's how the body works. Now, the surface of this, if you iron it out, is between 1 and 2 tennis courts, depending on the person.
Oh, wow.
So your intestine, if you open it up and you flatten all the foldings and the microfoldings,
It's enormous.
it's 1 to 2 tennis courts, 1.5 tennis courts, right? It's a huge surface. Now look, there's a huge circulatory system. So because every villi and macrovilli has an artery, arterioles going in and venules going out. Each folding also has these red things that are muscles, and this yellow, which is nerves. So each one has a nerve ending. Now imagine if we have 1.5 tennis courts or 2 tennis courts with nerves coming out every millimeter. You would have like a cable, like a huge cable, right?
Right.
So these are nerve endings from neurons. This is why the nervous system in the gut is so huge. This is why they call it the second brain. But I think that second, it's the first in size. There's more neurons here than in your skull, right? Its functions may be also very important. Like, for example, intuition is governed by the nervous system of the gut.
That's what you feel when something is coming your way, or if you feel happy, you feel something here. If you're nervous, you feel something here.
Yeah, you get a gut feeling, So, and gut feelings may be more important than what you're thinking, right?
That's true.
Because they may save your life in situations where your mind is telling you something, your rational mind is telling you something, which is usually wrong compared to what your gut tells you, right?
This never lied to you.
Yes. So which one is the first brain and the second brain?
That changed my mind right there, because I always call it, when I explain to people the little bit I know about health, I'm like, the better you eat, etc., your second brain will pick it up, because if this is wrong, this is definitely fuck.
Well, the thing is, these neurons, just like these neurons, they produce all the neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, gabapentin, all the neurotransmitters, which are the chemicals, because when 2 nerve cells get joined at the synapses, electricity comes through one and release these neurotransmitters that then get attached to receptors in the second. It's not that the electricity goes through. Electricity goes, then the neurotransmitters are released, and then they trigger another electrical impulse, and it continues. So these neurotransmitters are hugely important, and some of them are associated with happiness, like serotonin, dopamine, right? Some of them are associated with stress, like epinephrine and adrenaline, right? But they're all produced mostly in this brain, more than in this brain. So if you have a low production of serotonin in this brain, it's going to affect this one. Your depression really comes more from the gut than from your
Actual brain.
Well, what we call the brain, right?
Right.
Because there's not 2 brains. In reality, there's 3 brains. There's one in the heart too. If you get the heart and you dissect it, you will see the same thing. It's full of nerves. Now, we think of them as the electrical cables that excite the heart to contract. But there's an intelligence there beyond that. Because we could think of these nerves only in the sense of making contract these muscles to cause peristalsis, which is, the food is inside the tube, these muscles contract, and it pushes the food forward. Then these contract, then this contract. That contraction, which is in waves, is called peristalsis, and that's how food is pushed until it comes out, right? So that is part of what these nerves do, but they do other things too, right? So it's a huge, huge nervous system in the gut, and when everything is working fine, these
You feel amazing.
these neurons are producing the right neurochemicals, but when things start going wrong, the nervous system starts being a part of the adaptation and survival mechanisms, because biology, nature, doesn't make its creatures, human beings included, with any programming to get sick. The only thing that nature made its creatures is with the ability to adapt and survive, right? So, but it has to use the same systems. So if you're feeling great, all your systems are producing the things that they need to produce. But if the problems start, the same systems start reacting
Against it.
defending or whatever it is. So they cannot do the regular thing. So if these neurons are producing a lot of adrenaline because you are stressed all day long and you're in flight or fight, which you use for your sport, these neurons are producing certain things, and there's no time, energy, or resources, nutrients to produce the other things because
they're focused on the one problem.
they're focusing on adaptation and survival, right? And the problem today is that this wall, see how the cells are next to each other? See how there's a black thing between the cells? These are called the tight junctions. The cells of the wall of the intestine are like bricks of a brick wall. And between them, there's a cement, right? That's the tight junction. And in fact, it is like a cement. Your cells are stuck together with a cement. It's a glycoprotein that these cells produce that is sticky, that attach.
To keep them nice and protected and tight.
No, to keep them tight so nothing can go from the intestines, from the intestinal tube into the blood, in between the cells. Nothing should go in between the cells. Nutrients should be absorbed through the cell, not in between the cell. Why? Because the cells can recognize when the food is already broken into its minimum components and get those. But when it's broken between, and this cement is not produced anymore, not manufactured by the cells anymore, you lose the tight junction, and you start getting little holes between the cells. That is called leaky gut.
That's a bad problem to have.
Or hyperpermeability. And what happens is here, where the food is traveling, there's also good bacteria, bad bacteria, viruses, fungi, and who knows what other animals, and undigested food. So instead of amino acids, peptides or little proteins, and when those start going through the leaks and going to the blood, you see that in the intestine also, in the wall in the intestine, these cells that are marked here are the immune system cells. These little things are immunoglobulins that these cells are producing. So there's a huge immune system. In fact, 70 to 80% of the immune system in the body lives within and around the gut, in the blood, the cells of the immune system in the blood. So what happens is when undigested food and good or bad bugs pass through, the immune system starts reacting. The nervous system starts reacting, wants to get rid of them, so maybe gives you diarrhea. And this is the beginning of inflammation. Now, inflammation is a good adaptation and survival mechanism that nature put in, but it's meant to be in a small, limited area and for a limited time. But the problem with human beings is that we have our guts broken for years. So inflammation is turned on for years. And it's not only turned on minimally in one place,
it's everywhere.
It's 1.5 tennis courts of surface. So it becomes systemic. All the systems start getting inflamed. And sometimes it gets confused. And instead of attacking foreign stuff, it attacks your own body. Those are the autoimmune diseases, right? So this is why gut health is so important. This is actually what happens when people are walking around with injured guts, which in my opinion is everybody in the modern world. We are all walking around with some degree of gut injury, of hyperpermeability, and depending on your predisposition and genetics, you're going to react more or less. So sometimes with a small injury, you have a bigger problem than other people with a big injury just because of their constitution. Right.
We're all different.
We're all different. So no amount of there is no smaller amount of injury that's okay. For some people, So, and we're all walking around. Why? Because what breaks the gut? Number one, stress. Number two, chemicals and bad bacteria. And that's what's happening. We're stressed out of our minds all day long in this modern world today, and we're not eating real foods. We're eating edible products or food-like products full of chemicals, preservatives, conservatives, coloring agents, dyes, which everybody's talking about now.
It's a big problem, yeah.
And RFK said he's going to ban immediately. There's 10,000 chemicals that are put in into our food system
today
in the United States, whereas in Europe there's only 400. Right? So
that's crazy to me.
So those chemicals, they start by destroying the bacteria, then more resistant bacteria start growing, which are not good for us. And they make the body enter into an adaptive and survival mechanism. The immune system gets turned on, chronic inflammation, systemic inflammation gets turned on. And we know now today that all the diseases, Alzheimer's, cancer, diabetes, you name it, before they are even diagnosed, there's been 10 or 15 years of chronic inflammation before that, right? And this is where it comes from.
Most people don't even know
that it's going on.
They could avoid that if in the last few years they change a little bit for good. But that's what I think most people don't understand. Like, I will have someone tell me like, "Oh yeah, I'm eating healthy now. I've been looking at an example at me or someone that I admire out there, like the way they eat," and I was like, "What you eating?" And they tell me what they think it's healthy, and I'm like, "You're not doing. You think you're trying, but everything that you're buying that says organic doesn't mean that doesn't have a huge list of bad things for you, plus all these things that are what's the word? A substitute from whatever is healthy. It says like it's like the healthy thing, but it's not.
It's not.
And then because ignorance is huge too. Like most people, organic. There's like a green kind of dot in there. Like, oh, this is great for you, and it's like, no, it's not.
But I'll give you also a little bit of bad news, right? When the gut is injured, when there's leaky gut beyond a certain level, even if you eat really well, and you take care of yourself and you exercise, it may not be enough to get this fixed. Just like when you break a bone, just eating well and is not good. You have to put a cast on the bone, right, on the arm, so that you don't move it. And there are certain things that you have to do to fix, to heal, to correct a leaky gut. That it's not going to happen if you just eat good, and even if you eat good and take the right supplements. it has to be done in a certain way. That is when gut repair programs come into play, right? Because even the supplements that you take, they have to be taken in a certain way. You have to rest the digestive system. So there is a way to fix and repair the gut that
is not just with
that
a
is not
little
ju-
bit of health.
or maybe even with a lot of measures. you know.
How you fix this problem?
So, for example, I found a way.
Like, I know you create a clean program.
Yeah.
So with that, this can be fixed.
Yes. What I find is my patients and people that come to my retreats. I do retreats. Now I'm doing them in South America, but we're going to start doing them all over the world, where people come and spend time with me, and we do not only a certain diet, right, and which is intended to rest the gut from having to digest, because digestion is a very energy requiring process. That's why when you eat a lot, you fall asleep.
Yes.
Right? Because it consumes a lot of energy. So pretending to expecting to repair the gut while it's working all the time, it's like expecting to repair a bone while you're moving your arm all the time. You
That makes
can't.
sense.
So you have to rest it. So you have to eat in a certain way. The way I found the best results that I found was resting the digestive system by substituting breakfast and dinner for liquid meals. Even if it's the same food, if you liquefy it, it's easier to digest. So liquid meal for breakfast, liquid meal for dinner, and then I give people a solid meal at lunch, and there's a list of foods that you can eat and a list of foods that you cannot eat, and then there's certain supplements that you need in order to, for example, this cement that we were talking about that allows the cells to stick together hermetically so that nothing can pass in between them into the blood. The limiting nutrient for producing that cement is glutamine. Now, glutamine, even though it's in a lot of foods, it's difficult to absorb and make available for the cells to use. So I find that when I have people that I'm helping create the conditions to repair their gut, they need to take glutamine. But the way to take it is also important. You have to take it on an empty stomach with nothing to eat at minimum 2-3 hours before and nothing to eat for 2 hours after, right? And not mix it with other supplements except maybe magnesium or vitamin D. So that's only one example of how things have to be done in a certain order and in a certain way to allow the gut to repair. It's not enough just eating healthy.
Right.
For a lot of people. For a lot of people it is. You know, I sometimes I'm surprised. People do a few changes. Sometimes one person stops only bread and gluten and heals, right? But some people, they stop every food that we know to be negative to this process, and nothing happens. Why? Because this takes its art to heal, right? And so maybe those people that, let's say, they stop gluten, dairy, sugar, coffee, alcohol for a few days, you know, and they start feeling better. It's not that this healed. It's that things calm down inside the tube, and not so much is going into the veins and triggering the immune system.
Right.
But then you put them again, the problem is
comes
there.
back.
Yeah.
So, like, what's the best way to maintain a good health instead of just like calming the symptoms for a little bit? Like, what would it be a protocol to like become healthy and stay healthy?
So listen, everybody's walking around with some degree of gut dysfunction, and I think everybody would benefit from watching gut health from that point of view, right? So as I said, some people with some changes are going to do well, but not all. Some people are going to need not only to change their diets, but also to add the right supplements in the right way. And sometimes not even that is enough. Sometimes, for example, one of the number one injury-causing conditions for the gut is stress. So if you don't deal with it, no matter how healthy you eat, it's not going to.
It will keep attacking you.
It will keep. The problem will keep existing, right? So that's why I decided now to do these retreats, because I did create a gut repair program which is pretty effective, and I mean you've seen it on your friends and
my family use it all the time.
Your family and yes, and your trainer and your surfer friends. I mean it works really well, right? But some people need a little more. Like for example, I just came from Argentina from running a retreat, right? And I was sitting down with this woman who is a very smart woman who's been suffering for 4 years, bloating and pains and itchiness and things that she could not detect what was causing them. She because sometimes she ate bread or pasta and nothing happened, but sometimes she did and she bloated like a frog. You know, for 4 years she was suffering. So finally she got a diagnosis. SIBO. You know what SIBO is?
No.
Small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Too many bacteria growing in your small intestines, right? And for that, they give you very, very strong antibiotics. Like these antibiotics that they give you for that, rifaximin and neomycin, they destroy almost everything in the gut. So it's like you sterilize the gut, right?
So you just don't kill the bad, but kill all the good too.
Everything. And then you know, so she was very weary of doing that. So she heard about the retreat. She came to the retreat. And when I'm talking to her, in functional medicine, when you do a history taking from the patient, you start from the moment they were born. So first thing you ask is, were you born by C-section or naturally? Why? Because when you're born naturally, the vaginal canal is where you first encounter, because you come head first, is where you first encounter bacteria. And you go, and you take them in, and then you start sucking your mama's breasts,
right.
and that's how you inoculate. That's how you seed all the bacteria for the gut, right? So people that are born by C-section don't have that. They don't have the first inoculation. So they already have more
lack of something.
They already have more problems than people that are born naturally. People that are breastfed already are in better condition for the future than people that are not breastfed. So you start like that. And then I started with this woman, and you start, and then there's a point in life. Then you ask them, you know, how was your childhood? Did you miss school? Did you have infections? Did they give you antibiotics? Her childhood was great. She was born naturally. She was breastfed, never missed school, never sick. And then their teenagers were fine. And then when we get to her 30s, and when she was telling me about her childhood, you know, she had a happy face and everything. When we're getting into her 30s,
sadness came.
Something happened, which is a family tragedy, and that's when the problem started, right? And now, 10 years later or 15 years later, she's been suffering for 4 years from this that doctors called SIBO. The moment that family tragedy happened, and I was asking her, I could see her face already
crumbling.
You know? So I knew that there was some trauma that needs to be healed just by looking at her. You don't even need to be a doctor to figure it out. And what I do in these retreats, I bring all kinds of healers. You know, everybody that I meet around the world that I see that has a gift, that is an authentic healer, right? I use all kinds of modalities. In this particular retreat, I had a guy that did family constellations, which is a form of therapy to heal from family traumas, interrelationship traumas, sometimes generational. And it's very interesting because it's done in a group, and there's the therapist in the middle. The person that wants to work on something comes and sits right him, and he starts asking, and he immediately detected that there was a problem around her sister and her dad. So then he chooses a male to represent the dad and a female to represent the sister, and they start having a conversation. I'm not sure how he does it, because I'm not trained and I didn't read much about it, but just watching it was unbelievable. And they start talking, and these traumas kind of are lifted. And this woman, after our consultation, in which I told her I think there's a trauma there, had a session, and something opened up for her, and she was able to
Release.
to have a breakthrough from this trauma, right? Not only that, she was constipated. She was pooping every 6 or 7 days. So I took with me to Argentina these little bottles called Implantorama. You can buy them online, implantorama.com, that are little colonic, like home colonic machines. I told her to put half coffee, half water, and it has a pump and then a little tube that you put up your butt, and you pump the thing, and it all goes in, and it makes you poop incredible. She hadn't pooped for 5 days. So she did the family constellations, had that breakthrough, went to her room, had a coffee enema or colonic, and the next morning she looked and felt like a new person. And then for the rest of the retreat, she had not one symptom. This hadn't happened to her for years. So it wasn't really small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And if she would have taken the antibiotic, it would have caused more harm than anything. It was personal trauma and constipation that was really affecting her, right? So that is what I do in these retreats. I bring, because sometimes eating well and taking the right supplements is not enough. You have to heal something.
Right. There's something else, like is pushing those buttons.
Sometimes there's something else that is causing, like initiating this disaster, that until you deal with that, the disaster is not going to go away.
And most people really just look to the other way and be like, it's okay. But if you're a little more in tune with yourself, I mean, you put yourself in this type of retreats to like find the answer. Because I know a lot of people that for years, I mean, I speak, my mom, she goes to the restroom like every other year. And since I'm a little kid, she take pills to go to the restroom. I'm like, Mom. And I put it on the clean program. I'm like, do this for a week. I know you're going to crave your bread and your coffee. You're from Ecuador. For 7 days, do this. And like, feeling better energy, can run around with the kids.
Pooping a little better.
Pooping better, when other times you need like a pill to poop. If you need a pill to poop, you're at some degree fucked. Because you should eat, take the good, let go of the bad.
If things are working fine, if all these systems are doing what they need to do, then that's how it should be. You eat, you digest, you grab what you need, and you let the rest go. That should be. But when there's survival and adaptation mechanisms turned on, and these nervous cells are not stimulating the muscles to contract and cause the food to go forward, because they're very busy producing adrenaline for your fight or flight reaction, then you're going to be constipated. This is going to be flaccid, and poop is going to accumulate, and it's not going to go. And when you don't poop, it's like if you don't take the trash out from your house, and you just leave the bags of trash in the kitchen, and then the mice will come, and the flies will come, and
eventually the smell, the
smell, and it's going to be impossible to live in your house. Well, this is the same thing with not pooping. It's like not taking the trash out.
I mean, that's a big problem, because if I poop almost twice a day sometimes, but it's probably the exercise, putting the right amount of food in the system. But I mean, we also go through big weight cuts for the fight. That's what, like, I think, and I asked you this before, I implement fasting a lot before a fight, so my body almost gets used to eat normal or don't eat nothing. And I find that when I don't eat for 1, 2, or 3 days, my energy levels rises. I gotta start eating, because at some point I'm training every day, and I'm doing a big fast while I'm training. So at some point I'm like, this is also not so good, because I gotta like go and fight with an empty stomach for 2-3 days. I need something in. But for normal people that just do a normal job and a regular little exercise, fasting can be a big thing to change their health. What are your thoughts on start fasting for
When you look in nature, you get your answer. You look in nature and you see, let's say, lions, right? They catch a deer and they eat it. They have a feast. They fill up, and then they sleep for a couple of days, right? And then they wake up, and then the third day they're walking around, and then the fourth day their stomach is getting empty. The fifth day they're now getting hungry, and when they get hungry, they get energetic, and that's when they go for the hunt. It's not when they're digesting that they go for the hunt. So, these big cats or any animal, any predator, if you watch in nature, they don't go hunting and fighting when they're full and digesting. They go hunting and fighting when they're hungry, when there's nothing there, right? So that's why you probably feel more stronger and better at fighting when there's no digestion going on all the time.
Because it takes so much energy to digest.
Digestion is a very energy-consuming process.
So, like, what would it be like for people like is starting to become healthy or they want to do changes in their life? What would be like an easier protocol for a person that just wanna become healthy over time?
Well, the most important thing, I believe, across the board is to really get it that we need to eat what nature designed us to eat. Now, we may not know exactly what that is, right? But we know exactly what that is not. And what that is not is anything that is made in a factory. So no food-like products. You want to live long and healthy? Eat real food, not edible stuff. What does that mean? When you go to the supermarket, if you take a bird's eye view of the supermarket, 90% of the real estate in the supermarket is occupied by
aisles.
And what is in the aisles? Jars, cans, tubes, bags, right? And things that have to have a shelf life, right? Sometimes you go a week in a row and the same product is there until somebody buys it. And then you say, expires in 2-3 months. Now, how come something lasts 2-3 months in a shelf? You put an apple even in a shelf in the supermarket, but you throw an apple outside and you see in 3 days it starts getting rotten by bacteria and fungus. They start eating it. Why are bacteria and fungus not eating these things in the shelves? Because they put chemicals in it to prevent that from happening. They're called preservatives and conservatives, right? These are antibiotics, in a way. So when you eat that, those things that are killing bacteria and funguses from eating, preventing bacteria from eating that, they're going to kill your bacteria and funguses inside your gut.
It's gonna do this.
And they're going to cause dysbiosis, which is a disorder of the population of bugs that live in the gut.
That help you also.
Right. Yes, and these bugs in the gut, when they're the right bugs, they help you digest, they help you absorb, they produce chemicals that have all sorts of consequences in the body, communicate with the brain, they make you do things. They give you cravings. So if you have good bacteria, they'll give you cravings for good stuff. If you have the wrong bacteria, they give you cravings for the wrong stuff. They can make you depressed, anxious. I mean, now the bacteria in the gut, not the bacteria only, all the bugs in the gut are now starting to be correlated very precisely with different diseases, right? So the disorder of the gut zoo is called dysbiosis. Now, when you eat these food-like products full of chemicals, or when you eat real foods that have added chemicals, like for example, if you eat beef, and I know you love beef, but if your beef came from a cow that never saw the day of the light of day, and didn't move and exercise, and was fed foods that are not natural, like grains, Cows are supposed to eat grass, not grains. When they eat grains, because they have this different, they have like 8 stomachs or something. They have a different digestive system than humans, and they regurgitate. And when they regurgitate grains, sometimes it goes into the lungs and it gives them pneumonia. So farmers were losing, cattle growers were losing money like that. So to the grains, they add antibiotics so that they don't, and then they give them hormones so that they get fatter, right? So now you're not eating just meat. You're eating meat with hormones and antibiotics. I had a friend of mine whose daughter started growing pubic hair at 9 years old because she was feeding her meat and chicken with hormones, right? So you got to be careful when you go to the supermarket. Usually in the supermarket, the only things I buy are in the periphery. Right?
Exactly.
The fish, the meat, the chicken, and I try to make sure that they don't have hormones and antibiotics. The fish doesn't come from a farm where they give them coloring. They give them dyes to eat. Like for example, salmon that comes from a farm.
It's almost white.
It's white. But everybody wants salmon to be orange or
bright orange.
Right?
Same with eggs.
So they give them dyes. They give them ink, right, to eat. So they become red. So you have to be careful. Not even the periphery is safe anymore. Right? So eating real food, without chemicals, is probably the number one thing that could save the planet from the chronic disease pandemia that we are experiencing today. That's the first thing, right? Of course, sleep, exercise, exposure to the sun. There's a lot of things. Meditation, having a community that you can share with and love and get love from. All those things are really important. So it's not an easy
task,
and it's not an easy task to fix the health of human beings. But if you start by eating real food and not food-like products, you start in a big way.
I mean, that's number one, and I just don't think people read enough. Like what we say, like the steak, the eggs, the salmon, the fruit with pesticides, and the vegetable that most vegetables are. At least a cow, you gotta cut it, bring the steak out. But for the vegetables, when they spread it on top, you're not peeling the vegetable. You're eating the vegetable as it is, and that's a scary part sometimes, because sometimes you can go to a good supermarket that now it's owned by a corporation and they're making really good money. Now they go like they only buy for the farmers that grow quick, fast, and
shiny. They sometimes they put wax on the apple so that it looks even shinier. I mean, it's insane what's going on.
That's what, like, to me today, even going to this healthy supermarket, that's what I almost, for a while, I'm not against vegetables. I'm friends with the carnivore doctor, and I hear what he says. Part of me understand it.
Saladino.
Yes. But at some point, at least I enjoy some veggies. Like some of them I actually enjoy them. Like a proper good salad mixed with the right vegetables, like the crunchiness and the greens with a good olive oil, maybe some salt and pepper. It feels good to me, and I don't think I get bloated or hurt me in a way. But also I think, are those vegetables, where they get from? Are those shower on pesticides? Because if that's the case, them is really bad for me. So
I'll tell you one thing. After years and years of dedicating myself to helping people heal their guts, I came to realize, case after case after case after case, that when the gut is moderately to severely broken, it's harder to get it repaired eating vegetables than with eating carnivore diet,
Because at least on the meat, you can find grass-fed, grass-finished, and at least that guarantee you that there's no antibiotics on it. There's no drugs on it.
But it's not only that. It's that plants themselves produce chemicals that are sometimes
Auto defensive.
negative to the body. Why? Because this is their defense, the way to defend themselves from the predators, right? And the most famous one of them, or family of them, which are the lectins. But the lectins and all these defense chemicals that the plants produce, it is my belief and my experience as a doctor, and I've been guiding thousands of people in my years of being a doctor, that when the gut is healthy, I don't care about how many lectins you give it, because the gut the body needs some stress. It's called hormesis. The body needs good stress, because it's like when you lift weights, that's a stress that you're putting on the body, but the response is you get growth of muscle, and muscle, we know now how important it is for longevity, for health, right? So these defense chemicals that the plants produce do a lot of good, and also plants have a lot of other really good things. Right. Many phytonutrients, polyphenols. I mean, there's a lot of things that are really, really good for the body. Antioxidants, right? Vitamins, minerals. But when the gut is broken, with vegetables, it's harder to fix it than with meat.
For example, in the clean program, which best vegetables you keep on and which ones you keep out of it?
That's a really good question. So the vegetables that I keep out of it are the vegetables that have most of these defense chemicals. Is the family of the nightshades, right? Eggplant, tomato, peppers. They're all the vegetables that have a lot of these chemicals. And for example, the tomatoes, they have it mostly in their skin. That's why in Greece, for example, which is where people, there's an area in Greece, Ikaria, I don't know if you know, is a blue zone. It's where people, some of the areas where people live the longest. And you go there and you see 100-year-olds chopping trees, right? And one of the things that is really important in their longevity is their diet, right? And they eat meat, they eat also plants, right? But for example, the tomato, they peel it, and they don't eat the seeds. So they already know for thousands of years that the skin of the tomato
is bad for you in a way.
Contains things that may trigger certain problems in the body, right? So those are some of the vegetables that you take off the clean program. Then there's some certain fruits that you take off, and different fruits for different reasons. I don't allow bananas during the program because they're a little bit constipating. Oranges, because for a lot of people it triggers, maybe not allergic, for some people allergic reactions, but maybe not allergic reactions, but some kind of a immune hyperactivity. So the only citric fruits that I allow during the clean program is lemon, no grapefruit either. Strawberries I don't allow. The reason I don't allow strawberries is because also they're allergenic for a lot of people, but if they're not organic, strawberries are some of the most fumigated plants that the farms grow, right? Same as coffee, right? So there's a few things that if you get organic, they are actually good, but not during the clean program for the reasons I just explained.
Because they're gonna spread too much.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like a lot of problems definitely start here, and if this doesn't get any love for years, the problem is gonna become, like we say, chronic, and then it's hard to come back, but it's not impossible. There is a hope out there, but like you said, you gotta start with real food before food-like foods.
Yes. Listen, Hippocrates said it more than 2,000 years ago. Health and disease start in the intestine. And nothing is more relevant today than what he said more than 2,000 years ago. And he didn't even have the problems that we have today with the food supply and the pharmaceutical and the food industry, you know. They didn't even have that. But already it was something that he detected and recognized.
I mean, everything starts with what you eat, right? And I mean, for myself, because I take so much damage on the career that I do for living. I mean, I'm, getting punched, getting thrown around, training. I just push, push, push. I think the best I can do is try to eat the most natural I can, because if I'm already damaging myself like that, at least have a backup in a good, healthy diet, balance, and just stay away from fast food.
And I'll tell you what, it shows, because after your fight with, was it O'Malley?
O'Malley, yeah.
I mean, your face was in.
It was damaged, yeah.
It was damaged, and then I saw you a couple of weeks later. You look like new.
I did an interview that exactly 10 days after, and I was back to normal. The scar color went away, and a lot of people was like, "What you did?" I say, first thing I did, they give me painkillers, like literally like Oxycontin, which is heroin, and I dumped them in the toilet, and someone in my team was like, "No, you gotta take this." I'm like, I already have
you could have sold it for a lot of money.
I could. But then I was like, if I put that on me, I'm gonna be numb to the problem, which the problem was being beat up for a few days. What I did was like, I just kind of like fast for a week, but I didn't fast for a week. I was eating like a little bit in the morning of anything I crave, like cheese or eggs, a steak at night, and I drink one night, which it was 2 days after a fight. We did a family dinner. That day I drink, which I knew wasn't good for the inflammation I had on, but
the thing with you, Chito, is that you didn't only do that after the fight. You've been doing that for years.
Right.
So your repair, I mean, the immune system is defense and repair, right? So your defense and repair mechanisms are already working fine even before you get to the fight.
Right.
And then after the fight, you continue with that kind of regimen and diet. Obviously, your body's going to recover faster than somebody that's drinking all day long or eating shit.
And I remember I saw a fighter that fought for the title also, and he won, but he had like a crazy beat up eye, huge cut, and I saw him 3 months after his fight. His eye inside still red, and the scar was like bright pink, and I was like, yo, what's your diet look like, or do you feel good in the basis? Like, most fighters are tough, so they don't get it. They think I work hard, I can eat shit, I'm gonna sweat it out later. But it's not about sweating it out. Like, eating a cheeseburger and jumping in the sauna isn't gonna fix the problem. You might get a little dehydrated and wake up at the same weight that you were the day before, but that doesn't mean the chemicals inside are gonna get away through the sweat. You can get rid of some toxins that we have in the skin, but you don't get rid of to the deep cause of future trouble.
Well, the thing is, the amazing thing about our body, about nature, is that we are capable of dealing with most of the chemicals that we are bombarded with.
Yeah.
It's amazing how our liver can neutralize and detoxify chemicals that were invented last week. It's just, if you think about it, it's whoa, right? There are some chemicals that the body cannot get rid of. Those are the forever chemicals, you know? But most of them we can get rid of, right? But the problem is that in order to get rid of them, you need certain good nutrients for the liver to be able to manufacture the enzymes. But how does the liver clean out the toxins? The toxins are circulating in the blood. 90% of the toxins from the outside world, not the ones that are the waste product of your metabolism. Those are floating around the blood, produced inside of you. The ones that come from the outside, 90% of them only get dissolved in fat. There's a scientific name, lipophilic. Lipo means fat, philic means attracted to. So 90% of the chemicals, all the chemicals that we're talking about in the aisles of the supermarket are lipophilic. They only dissolve in fat, not in water. Now, how do we eliminate stuff from the body? Through water, sweat, pee, and poo, right? So, but you cannot eliminate things that are only fat soluble. So they have to be converted into water soluble. That is a chemical reaction that the liver creates with enzymes. And in order to manufacture those enzymes, the body needs sulfur, needs certain proteins, certain amino acids, certain vitamins. If you're not getting those through your diet, your body's not going to be able to clean out the mess. And what happens? These toxins keep circulating, and then they're going to go and get dissolved in fat. And where do you find fat in the body? In the brain, in the thyroid, in the breasts, in the testicles, in the ovaries, around the kidneys, around the gut. Where are the cancers that are exploding in the statistics these days? In all these organs, the fat-containing organs, right? So, and if the liver continues not being able to do that, your body will retain and even generate fat in order to defend you against these circulating toxins. So part of the cause of the epidemic or pandemic of obesity is that we have too many toxins. And I don't know if you have this opinion, right? But I used to lift weights like a lot. I used to be jacked up, right? And I went to the gym and I used to, hang out with the bodybuilders. And the bodybuilders know how to force the fat to get melted, but not necessarily in a healthy way that's providing what the liver needs in order.
Right.
So these people that get their fat melted forcibly, right? Then the toxins are circulating. When bodybuilders get to a certain age, they're not very healthy.
Right.
This is what my experience of what I've seen.
I'm with you there. A lot of there's a lot of very famous bodybuilders that they die young from big diseases, and probably it's because like you said, the way they do it.
Fat is actually made. The body doesn't make mistakes. It's made to defend you, right? So these toxins are irritating and causing problems and turning on certain receptors that they shouldn't be, or blocking certain receptors that shouldn't be blocked, right? And when there is no fat to contain, surround, and buffer their irritation, things go wild. So if you force your body
just to
burn your fat, you're not doing yourself any favor. So
right,
you see somebody that's like super fit and wow. Well, not so wow,
because there's the same fat that will protect the organs is not there.
Exactly.
That's why it's crazy to me when doctor says like, stay away from avocado, that's cholesterol. Stay away from the yellow part of the eggs because it's cholesterol. It's like, no, all that thing is gonna help you. Like, you need to eat those things to have a better diet. And when I buy eggs,
well, don't get me started with cholesterol, right? Because cholesterol is actually a type of fat that is used by the body to manufacture some of the most important parts of your body. Your nerves, the nerves are surrounded by a sheath. It's like cables with the plastic is an insulating sheath, right? The cables that you use in any camera you look at, they have
a little plastic around.
They're surrounded by plastic. Nerves, the same thing, but it's not plastic. It's fat. The sheath is fat.
You need fat.
It's myelin, right? And that is mostly made out of cholesterol. Your hormones, your testosterone, is mostly made out of cholesterol. Estrogen, and neurotransmitters. So this thing with cholesterol, which is a manufactured problem to sell you a solution that makes a lot of money is something that we need to really get rid of.
I know, like, when I hear like when I have a friend that is not an athlete, that is just a normal person, and they told, and I'm not a doctor by any means, I'm more in the moron side of things, and they told me what the doctor told them, don't eat this, don't eat that. I'm like, actually, I think you need to eat that. Did he told you to stop eating Skittles or drinking beer? It's like, no, he told me to get rid of bacon and avocado. I was like, well, you gotta fire the motherfucker now.
Yeah, get a second opinion.
Get definitely a second opinion.
But the sad thing is that most doctors, most modern doctors in hospitals today, they don't even ask you what you eat. So there is no dietary recommendation. You come in, you have high blood pressure, this pill. You have high cholesterol, this pill. You have depression, this pill. Just like you were talking about before, right?
Right. What about asking you what you did? Asking the lady, how were you born, C-section or normal? Because now you know the bacteria. Like, I put an example. All my 3 kids, they all C-section, because I heard when you do one C-section, with my first daughter was emergency, you always have to go C-section because now that scar's gonna bother something. I'm pretty sure that there's gotta be a method to do natural, but in Ecuador, they just cut you open if you already been cut open. But my 3 kids, they were breastfeeded. Anna, because of her condition, she was breastfeeded less because she couldn't suck as a kid because she didn't have the paralysis. But my other 2, they breastfeed for 4 years. Those kids don't get sick. And I don't knock on wood. I'm not saying that they're in their guts, but they have a way better immune system than other kids. I go to school, and every single time in school, I would say like 70% of kids are coughing, crazy mucus coming out. And I see them, they're all like, and you can tell they're weaker. Like, they look weak. They look like they need some health. And then when I have a friends with kids, I'm like, make sure those fucking kids are sucking teeth all day. And most families, when the kids are like 1 or 2, they stop. And nature, you let them stop when they want to stop. Like the way nature works, in my experience with my kids, when Ellie was born, which is she's my 3rd one, Nacho, my middle kid, he was 4.5, I think, and he would like drink on public, and he was already a big kid. He would drink everywhere, and my wife wasn't like, oh, we need to wait till we're in private. No, you wanna eat, I feed you. The day she was born, this is how crazy nature works. The day in the hospital she was born,
he stopped.
He literally went like, my wife was with the baby here, and Nacho was next to her. He's like, oh, it's time to eat. And he's like, no, I'm good. And that gave a little depression to my wife. She's like, oh, you don't want me anymore? And same with Ellie. Ellie will drink until like she was like almost 5, and one day she just walk away.
Yeah. So but maybe what happened is you compensated being born by C-section by feeding them a little longer, because there's different theories, but up to 2 years is what I have in mind as being kind of
okay,
right? And but maybe that's what gave your kids the extra strength that they would not have had because they were born by C-section. Right. So yeah. Listen, there's always ways of
compensating things in nature.
Yeah.
Because there's moms that they're full of milk, right? And just because society is, just buy the fucking powder milk, and that drives me crazy. When I see a family member making that fake milk with millions of chemicals, I'm like, that kid haven't even know what life means, and you're already giving him poison just because you don't know is the best thing is to put in your breast.
Yeah.
There gotta be a fix in health out there, but I hope people learn a little bit from you today.
Yeah, well, I hope so too. And, and thank you so much for having me.
I really appreciate you, man. Thanks, Doug.